We were offered a 25% discount on this holiday because we'd booked to go to Cape Town and join Voyager, whose parent company went bust. So we splashed out on a suite which was large, comfortable, complete with Christmas tree, and sunglasses on the floor. And this is our itinerary. After a long, delayed flight, we joined Braemar at Barbados, and while we waited for our luggage to be delivered, we set off to explore the ship a little and find our way around. Oh look, those sunglasses are still on the floor. The next day we woke to find ourselves in St. Lucia, an island originally settled by the French, who signed a treaty with the Carib Indians in 1660. St. Lucia changed hands between the French and the British 7 times until 1814, when the British finally took control and hung on to it. It became an independent state in 1979. One of the Caribbean's most famous exports is bananas. But we in Europe insist on buying clean, spotless bananas, so the bunches are covered in polythene bags to stop the insects reaching them and marking them. And this in turn presents the islands with a huge recycling problem. We're on our way to Soufriere and stop to get a splendid view of the 2 pitons which dominate the landscape. Soufriere means literally sulphur in the air, and this is where it's coming from, the sulphur springs. We didn't see the mud baths that are here, but went to a viewpoint to look down on the bubbling mud pools. Our guide compared the area to Rotorua in New Zealand. Now, having been there, we decided these came nowhere near it. Our next stop was the Diamond Botanical Gardens, with a vast array of exotic and brightly coloured flowers and fruit trees. It was very hot and humid here. We also had a buffet lunch here at the Old Mill restaurant. While I was washing my hands in the gents, I looked out through the open window and could see hummingbirds feeding on some flowers close by. In the afternoon, the trip back to Castries was by catamaran, much more comfortable and more pleasant than being on a coach. We stopped for a swim for those who wanted it, after which the first of the holiday's many rum punches were served up. The tour that we'd booked for St. Vincent was to spend the day on the nearby island of Mustique, but that was cancelled. The island is private and presumably most of the residents were there for Christmas and didn't want an invasion of tourists as well. Instead, we set off on another catamaran, this time to go dolphin spotting. It was an amazing trip. We saw nothing. Not one dolphin, whale, porpoise, giant squid, monster from the deep, or even a small flying fish. But it didn't really matter. It was just lovely being out there while we all kept a lookout, just in case. We made a stop at Wallilaboo Bay, a beautiful bay where some of the opening scenes were shot for the first Pirates of the Caribbean film. Jack's Bar was there, a film set that looked great from the outside but was just a shell supported by scaffolding on the inside. The next morning at Grenada, we berthed right next to the monstrously huge Britannia. With passengers and crew, there are nearly 6,000 people on that ship.
Country road, take me home to the place I belong. Sweet Grenada.
Fort George overlooks the capital and the port. As you can see, it rained while we were there. Another warm, tropical burst that soon dried up.
Almost heaven, that's Grenada. Verdant mountains, St. Catherine's forever. Feel the cool, cool waters. Love the tropical breeze.
This is the traditional Creole bus that took us around. Well, David and I had problems because our row of seats was right over the wheel arch, and David even cut his leg on it at some point.
place I belong, sweet Grenada.
One thing you can't get away from in the Caribbean is rum. And this may look derelict, but it's a working distillery. But with the workers on their Christmas break.
London's bridge is waiting, sun is shining bright. Take a trip to Bathway on a Sunday night.
By now, the sun had come out again, and we were at the Radisson Hotel at Grand Anse Beach. There was a free drink and the chance to go for a swim. We stayed in the shade at the bar, especially after we heard someone talking about sandflies.
To the place I belong, sweet Grenada, greens forever. Take me home, country road. My throat is thirsty for rivers and Glasgow rum. My body craves for a taste of the sweet old damn. Yes, the monkeys singing songs right up in Granny.
On our return to the ship, we took a walk into St. George's in the hope of finding a nice little place for lunch. All we could find were KFCs and burger bars, and had something on our balcony instead.
To that place.
Later, we saw some of Britannia's passengers returning. What a rough lot. Keep an eye on the guy in the red shorts. Yes, he did do that. And in case you missed it,
Take me home to the place I belong, sweet Grenada, spice and forever. Take me
and with Britannia out of the way, we were able to see the sunset. And no, this is not speeded up. It was a relief to be at sea on Christmas Day. With our long flight, the clock change, and then 3 days with excursions, we were pretty tired. We were very lazy and didn't join in any activities, but looked forward to see what Fred Olsen would provide for Christmas dinner. Well, the turkey tasted like pre-sliced, pre-packed meat, the potatoes were not roasted, and the vegetables were all overcooked. And the small slice of Christmas pudding stuck on top of a blob of brandy sauce was an insult. Boxing Day, and we approached the Dutch island of Aruba and navigated deep but narrow channel into the capital, Oranjestad. Aruba is a tiny island off the coast of Venezuela. The Netherlands acquired it in 1636.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some...
The capital is a strange blend of old and new. There are brightly coloured old buildings, most now housing shops, sitting alongside modern shopping malls with luxury retailers, boutiques and jewellery stores.
They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 9.
We chose not to go on an excursion in Aruba, but to do our own thing, stroll around town, and we ended up in this rather nice beach bar. And so to Bonaire and its capital Kralendijk. Like Aruba and Curaçao, it forms part of the Dutch Caribbean. And we're off to the Washington National Park, which was established in 1969. The park is a safe haven for parrots, flamingos, parakeets, iguanas, and the beaches are important nesting spots for all 4 species of turtle. Our ride on the open bus took us through huge areas of the park, just covered in cactus plants. And this tiny cove is called Boca Kokolishi, a favourite spot for nesting turtles. And although we didn't manage to film it, there was one in the water below making her way in. On the way back, we were hoping to see flamingos, but no luck.
Building here on your left-hand side, that is the ladies' school for the young ladies. And behind the church, in front of the roundabout, behind the church, there's the boys' school. So you can imagine what the priest is doing during the night. He's standing here on the roundabout.
Again, after lunch, we went for a walk and realised that we seem to have developed a knack for finding those nice beachside bars. This is a much quieter and laid-back island compared with Aruba and Curaçao. It doesn't have any flashy casinos or showy pastel-coloured buildings, and it doesn't have a rainy season, which is why there are so many cactus plants. Curaçao and its capital Willemstad, and we're off on an early morning trip which did take us past some flamingos.
20 to 30 meters, and they leave it.
But our first stop was at the Hato Caves.
Glossopaga. Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, you see all the rocks here. They were part of the ceiling, but they fell down.
The island of Curaçao is formed in layers going up in height, known as terraces, and uniquely, these caves are in the highest third terrace, so there are plenty of steps to climb up to the entrance. It wasn't easy, or really allowed, to film in there, and we certainly couldn't get shots of the hundreds of bats hanging from the rocks or flying around.
We can accommodate 6 cruise ships in the harbor. Yes, at one time. So it will be 2 on your side where your ship is docked, 2 or 3 depending on their size, and 2 here.
And if I say, what's the most famous export of Curaçao? It is, of course, the liqueur with the same name. And that meant another distillery to go around. And of course there were the obligatory tastings, though not for David. This factory is the only place that makes the Curacao liqueur. It's made from the dried peel of the Lahara fruit. It's a bitter orange native to the island. The flesh of the orange is quite nasty, but the peel is aromatic and makes the liqueur special. So for $8 I'm enjoying a cocktail made with tamarind-flavoured Curacao, though I'm not sure if it's the drink or the tattoos that's mesmerising me.
The harbor are the sponsors for all of our Christmas decorations throughout town. Our refinery was built in 1916 by the Shell Company.
The Curacao Museum is housed in an old colonial-style building. It has a traditional plantation kitchen, antique mahogany furniture, and paintings by local and international artists. A curious blend of old and new. Also here is the cockpit of the Snip, the first KLM plane to cross the Atlantic from Amsterdam in December 1934. It took 8 days. Leaving Curacao was interesting. We'd seen that there was a huge pontoon bridge across the bay. Well, the pontoons are swung round by propellers powered by diesel engines. Everybody on ships and boats has to wave. Never understood it. A lazy day at sea, and David spent a while trying to film seabirds. He missed. St. Kitts is a nice island. It was established by France, but claimed by the British after the Napoleonic War. Celebrity Eclipse looks even bigger than Britannia, but it's actually smaller and takes only 2,850 passengers compared with Britannia's 4,300. Today we're being taken a few miles by coach to catch a train, a narrow gauge line built to transport sugar cane from the fields to the sugar mills in Basse-Terre. These days it's a delightful scenic railway taking us on a 2-hour trip across the island. And guess what's included?
We have rum punch, strawberry daiquiri, mango daiquiri, rum and coke, rum and sprite, rum and water, rum and rocks, rum and rum, fruit punch, diet coke, regular coke, sprite, and our island water. That's our bar for you today. Also on board we have some charming, smiling, beautiful hostesses who will take care of you as we go on our tour. And car 5 we have pleasantly plumb Mashana, 4 Kimberly, 3 smiling Lisa, 2 Joel, and then car 1 we have Amber. My name is Patricia, but you call me Sweet Pea. Now I promise you we are going to have a wonderful time today. Greenhouses in the whole of the Caribbean. It is also 100% powered by solar.
Although we refer to St Kitts, this is actually St Kitts and Nevis. And although it's difficult to film from a moving train, that is the island of Nevis.
The Atlantic and the Caribbean. That area is where the two oceans meet. So what happened now is that we're leaving the Caribbean side and we're now crossing over on the Atlantic side, which is the rough side. The roots have been washed away by constant rain. Constant water has washed away the roots of these trees. They are called Caribbean cedar trees, and these trees are more than 100 years old.
I hear singing in the air over my head. I hear singing in the air over my head. I hear singing in the air. There must be a voice somewhere. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Tanya, strumming on the open door. Big boy, I know. Big boy, I know. Big boy, I know. Strumming on the open door. I know. Big boy, I know. Big boy, I know. Strumming on the open door. This is my island in the sun, and the ground starts to shine me gone. I was better many sheep, but it shows me always rough for me. Oh, island in the sun, where she meet my father's hand. All my days are messy and please off the forest water and shining sun.
This is the village of Christchurch, Nicholatown, Christchurch. To our right we can see the Christchurch Anglican Church. Second major bridge, the Soldier Got Bridge, 240 feet long. This is an extension of the beautiful black sand beach. The sand is very dark in these areas because we're very close to the volcano. The closer we are to the volcano, the darker the sand. Please keep your hands and your bodies on the inside of the train as we pass under this narrow overhead. Thank you. $10 bill. You see the face of Alexander Hamilton. He was born right there to our sister island. Thank you very much for choosing the St. Kitts Scenic Railway Tour. And we want you to get back to say to all of your friends, your families, your co-workers, your neighbors about the wonderful time we had at the St. Kitts Scenic Railway Tour. But whatever you choose to do, enjoy enjoy yourself. Whether you go to Catamaran School or you go in and around Bastille, please enjoy yourself.
We were back on board Braemar for lunch, and when the weather had cooled down a little, went into Basse-Terre, passing a couple of pelicans by the jetty looking out for fish. Once we were through the welcome arch and out onto the street, we realised quickly that things were going to be noisier than we were expecting. There was a children's carnival underway, but it seemed to be rather disorganised. The children didn't seem to know what they should be doing, and most of them looked bored and a bit fed up. Time to find an equally noisy bar. Suddenly, David spotted a few pelicans flying around the ship. And it's quite a wet morning when we arrive at Antigua, an island that I first visited in 1974.
For the rest of my life, I will remember blue waters, that very special beach on the north shores of Antigua, and the remainder of my days I will yearn for your sunshine.
Okay, not a lot of sunshine just now, but we're about to go indoors to an interpretation centre for an audio-visual show about Antigua's past and present.
I named the island Santa Maria de la Antigua, but I will not go ashore. I must continue westward to find the lands of spices and gold.
Walking around the plantation. European governments, planters, attorneys, and a rich lifestyle which lives on. Many stay and form the basis of Antiguan culture. And over time, we changed the system of colonial rule and social structure.
Well, the show was aimed more at children, I think, and we didn't learn a lot, but it kept us out of the rain.
Like you're all mine. Most days are golden and so pure, that wows my world around.
This is looking down over Nelson's dockyard, which we'll be visiting shortly.
The perfect place for love and friends and family. Antigua, Antigua, beautiful Antigua, beautiful Antigua, Barbuda, pink sand turquoise. turquoise water.
The 1st West Indies Regiment was stationed here at what's called the Blockhouse. It's mostly in ruins now, but there are great views across the bay to Eric Clapton's house right there on the point.
You hold the key, Antigua, my universe, my pleasure. And as the years go by, my dreams with you live on and on and on and on and on. A love affair so strong, you are my number one. Most days are golden and so pure.
Nelson's Dockyard, named after Admiral Nelson, who lived here from 1784 to 1787. When the Royal Navy abandoned it in 1889, it fell into decay, but restoration began in 1951, and it's now the only working Georgian dockyard in the world.
Beautiful Antigua, beautiful Antigua.
Overlooking the dockyard is Clarence House, 200 years old, and a favourite spot of Princess Margaret, who spent part of her honeymoon here. It had to be rebuilt after hurricane damage, but was finished in time for a visit by Prince Harry in 2016. We took a taxi up to the northeast of the island to the Blue Waters Hotel. I was last here, just for one night, nearly 44 years ago in 1974. I had to come to Antigua to catch an American military flight from here to Ascension Island. Of course, it's changed completely, but I wanted to see it again for old time's sake and to have lunch here. A week here over Christmas in a beachfront room costs about £5,000, and that's without flights.
Love and friends and beautiful Antigua, beautiful Antigua, Bermuda, pink sand, turquoise waters, Antigua, Antigua, Antigua.
Well, of course, it's New Year's Eve, so after a rather dull so-called 5-course banquet, which was a big disappointment, we all assembled on top deck for the countdown. The service at dinner was so slow that the sorbets put on the side to have between courses had completely melted. As you can see, none of us looked very excited about the occasion. Oh, look, there's one lady dancing. Oh well, she's in the mood anyway.
Excuse me, this is getting too personal.
Oh, you can only get me by my left profile.
Is that the best it's going to do?
Gentlemen, 20 seconds.
What? Come on, quick.
15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
David, Happy New Year! All the best to you.
David went up onto the smaller open Deck 9 to film some of the fireworks over the capital, St. John's. We are leaving Antigua to sail to Montserrat. Not that we're going to land there, we're to circumnavigate the island. We looked out of our cabin windows and thought, wow, no wonder we can't land. But that wasn't Montserrat at all. It was on the other side of the ship. Montserrat is a British overseas territory. It's about 10 miles long and about 7 miles wide, and it's sometimes called the Emerald Isle of the Caribbean because of the Irish ancestry of many who live here. There was a major crisis here in 1995 when the previously dormant volcano erupted. Most of the 12,000 residents were moved to the north to live in makeshift shelters. Many left and went to the UK, but some remained in the south of the island, saying they wanted to look after their land and crops. As a result, 23 people died. Plymouth, the capital, became a ghost town, with homes, hospitals and schools being destroyed. Well, now the population of Montserrat is less than 5,000. Unfortunately, our circling of the island was done at quite a distance and we couldn't get close views. But using the zoom lens, we could see the lava flows sweeping down to the sea. In 1998, in recognition of the disaster, the people of Montserrat were granted full residency rights in the United Kingdom, allowing them to migrate if they wanted to. British citizenship was granted in 2002. And the last volcanic activity here started in November 2009 and lasted a couple of months. Martinique was our last port of call before heading back to Barbados, and it was certainly one of our favourite islands. We didn't go on one of the organised tours, but decided to find a taxi driver to take us up to the northwest and the town of Saint-Pierre. We wanted to go there because of its tragic history. In 1902, the volcano erupted and destroyed Saint-Pierre, and all but one of the town's 30,000 inhabitants were killed. And he survived because he was a prisoner in an underground cell with thick prison walls. Now there's a museum in the town, which is also known as the Caribbean Pompeii. We were haggling with the taxi driver about taking us there when it became obvious that other people from the ship fancied doing this as well. Well, the more people, the cheaper per person. We'd just about settled on a total of $180, that's about $30 each, when the others started saying that instead of going straight there and back, we should do one of the tourist circuits instead. Twice, the price crept up until it reached $240. That's $40 each. And we ended up doing exactly the same as the Saint-Pierre and rum distillery excursion that would have cost us £40. So at least it was cheaper in the taxi.
Lettuce, salad. Salad.
In all the fuss, our driver made sure that we reached the rum distillery and gave us time to taste and buy, which we didn't do and didn't really want to do. But we drove straight through Saint-Pierre. We didn't stop, and we didn't get to the museum, which we would have done on the Olsen tour. But the visit to Saint-Pierre was the whole point of what we wanted to do. The museum was where we really wanted to go, so I was more than a bit fed up that we'd allowed our trip to be hijacked by others. But the views were nice. After lunch, we took a stroll around the capital, Fort-de-France. Martinique is an overseas département of France, and as such it's part of the European Union, and its currency is the euro.
Welcome to Havana town. Cuban, Jamaica, link up, people gather round. Mr. DJ, turn up the sound.
Somewhere in this park is a statue of Napoleon's first wife, Josephine, who was born on the island. But what we found was what looked like a transport cafe in an English lay-by, a mobile kitchen with cheap plastic chairs and tables outside. But take a look at the menu. Carpaccio de bœuf à l'italienne, terrine de foie gras maison, coquelet au foie gras. Not like any transport cafe I've ever seen.
I take you on a journey, mixing music like the drink them called Cubana, mixing Cuban percussions and thoughts from Ghana. Free up yourself, do what you wanna. Roll it up, light it up, smoke your marijuana. When you dip on the corner, nobody won't bring no kind of drama. Today you don't need no armor, no armor. I got to walk straight on this rocky road, positive attitude, whenever I'm on the move.
We normally avoid the rather tacky entertainment that's offered on these cruises, but I do like to make a point of going to the crew shows. These are amateur shows put on by the mainly Filipino crew, often containing traditional dances and songs. And what they lack in professionalism, they make up for in enthusiasm. But I have to say, this was not one of the best crew shows we've ever seen.
Show you
it's fun to stay at the YMCA.
Ladies and gentlemen, show your appreciation for your Braemar.
And here we are, back where we started. But we're not going home just yet. We have a whole day today, and then fly home tomorrow evening. So, time first to explore Bridgetown.
So let the reggae music play on the beach tonight. Give me a signal if you feel the vibe. Give me a light, look alive. Reggae music in Nirvana, everything is nice.
There were decorated Christmas trees everywhere in Bridgetown, hundreds of them. Some were done by businesses, others by school children, churches or organisations like the Mothers' Union.
I can feel the vibrations.
What about a smile? Hello?
But many think that I am slave, but I speak. Let my lyrics take you to the highest peak. And when you rage, don't you dare take a seat. Just take the love that you receive and put it back with me. And we can all gather at the same.
I sat and chatted to a local man, and he told us how to find the cathedral.
She's telling me she love percussion. And I said, what's her name? She says Saida. I said, Saida, link me for the fire. I am the supplier, and I'll be right there when you need.
Our final day, and here comes Britannia again.
Come alive, reggae music, reach your border, everything is nice.
We're leaving Braemar for the last time because this excursion is going to end up at the airport for us to catch our flight home. The first stop on this tour is St John's Parish Church. Well, the church itself isn't very interesting, but it has a fascinating cemetery and is perched 800 feet up on a cliff with great views over St John's and the ocean. This is the tomb of David Thompson, who was Prime Minister of Barbados from 2008 until his death from cancer in 2010 at the age of 48. Sunbury Plantation House, a lovely example of a Barbadian sugar estate great house. It was built over 300 years ago and has a huge collection of antiques, china, silver and old prints. Down below in the cellar is the largest collection of horse-drawn carriages in the Caribbean. We had a buffet lunch in the courtyard restaurant, while nameless birds flew in and out and pinched food off the plates. Well, this is a big bearded fig tree. When the Portuguese first came across this island in 1536, they referred to it as Los Barbados, or the bearded ones. So the island may have got its name from this tree. And so, our final visit on this holiday, the Concorde Museum.
Ladies and gentlemen, Barbados proudly presents British Airways Concorde GBOAE, or Alpha Echo for short. Taking off from London's Heathrow at 9 a.m. every week, it was Concorde that thrilled its passengers by arriving here in Barbados 10 minutes before 9 the same morning. Engineering and beauty seem to converge in the Concorde. No other passenger plane comes close to its grace and speed. Yet this beauty was not the first goal of the Concorde, but rather the product of brilliant and far-sighted engineering aimed to move an aircraft at twice the speed of sound. Barbados was one of only 4 regular destinations of the Concorde. Watching the Saturday morning arrival of the Concorde was a ritual around Bradley Adams International Airport. So it is fitting that after over 7,000 supersonic flights, Concorde GBO Alpha Echo would make its final home here.